guys. Hey, how's it going? Um, really that we're doing another one of these. So welcome. And we've got some questions already coming up. So I'm really excited about that. All right, Renee's got a couple of really hard questions for me. So I'm going to go ahead and get started with those. Her first question is, in a recent trial, my dog walked by a hide, and the judge told me to go back to food pairing for a month to fix it. I've never done food pairing, and I wonder if it would be useful at the NW3 level. Um, wow. So I don't pair. I know a lot of folks who know me. They know I don't pair. Um, I think especially if you've never paired, it's probably not going to help very much. It's possible. So if we kind of rewind a little bit and we talk about why a dog might have walked by a hide, and we kind of think about what could be causing that. Um, One of them could be a focus issue. So if the dog was not fully engaged at the time, that can cause it. So you want to make sure that you've got your dog engaged, that you've done your setup, and you've done your get your dog fully engaged before you start. If they're into searching and they're motivated for searching, it should not be an issue. If they walk past the hide, or if they search past the hide, think about it this way: it's possible that the odor was not available at the point where they went past the hide. So odor is going to be carried on air currents, right? So if the air currents are moving in the other direction, your dog can literally go completely past a hide and miss it. So it's possible that that's what happened. And in that case, the issue is not pairing. I mean, what you want to do with that is not pairing. But the issue itself could be the hide, not necessarily, um, whether or not they're pairing. So let's talk about pairing a little bit. I have nothing against it. I don't do it. Let's talk about how odor works a little bit. So essential oil is very volatile, has a high vapor pressure. This means that it takes a lot of pressure to keep the molecules from expanding. So our odor is very big. Our odor, an essential oil, our sport odor gets very big. It expands, diffuses. It goes big. Food odor, very often, sometimes it's a little bit heavier. So the odor behavior of the food that you pair with can actually be very different than the odor behavior of the essential oil. So what happens with pairing, this is actually the issue I actually have with pairing, is that I think what happens in a lot of cases is the dog may work essential oil to a point. Then all of a sudden, keep in mind that like the essential oil plume could be going this way, the food plume could be going that way, right? And you can have a situation where the dog comes in initially for essential oil, then they switch to the food odor and they follow that food odor source. So they may not even follow target odor all the way to source. They may be following cheese or hot dog, right? And that odor is going to behave differently than your essential oil. So you can end up with a situation, even if you pair, the dog may actually be sourcing based off of food odor. And what's really interesting, if you watch dogs, and let's say sometimes I'll see people that they do high hides, right? And all of a sudden they put food on it. Now the hide is available. which tells me the essential oil is doing one thing, the food odor is doing another. And the dog actually follows the food odor to the hide. What have they learned? Nothing. They've learned to follow food odor to the hide. They actually have learned nothing about the hide itself. And I also think that this is my theory that dogs can really kind of think of one thing at a time. Are they going to be thinking of food or target odor? And I think sometimes when you kind of put the two together, that they are going to start thinking about food more than target odor because they get into like, oh, I love cheese, right? So even though you may have a piece of cheese on your hide, the dog may be really thinking cheese when they get to the hide itself. So do they even know that target odor is there? Right? Um, so this is kind of one of the things that when I think about pairing, this is what I'm thinking about. And it's actually one of the reasons why I don't pair. I would rather the dog understand that when they get to the hide, that there is a cause and effect between getting to the hide and getting the reinforcement. So I've actually, oh gosh, I think I paired maybe 4 or 5 hides tops. And I think I did that with Judd. I tried it. I absolutely tried it. And then I went back to the way I was training, and I've trialed 6 dogs at this point. I've put 13 summit titles on 3 different dogs, which to my knowledge is actually more than any other handler. My dogs do okay. I've never had to pair. I've also worked low drive dogs. I've worked Joey, who was my standard poodle with absolutely no food or toy motivation. And I have a mini Aussie who is now, oh gosh, he's 14 years old. He's very low confidence. So I haven't just worked high drive Labradors. So all I can say is that I've never had to. So anyway, all right. Okay, we have another question. So Renee has another question. She said, you mentioned once that you don't train suspended hides. What did you think on that? Like she really kind of throws these questions at me. No, I don't train suspended hides. And the reason is that we have to be really careful because suspended hides are often trained with a visual. And even if we're not training with a visual, we're reinforcing the dog for going, it's just up, right? And in my history, I've had, I've had a dog that, so Brava is very visual. And she has had some situations where she catches suspended odor. So odor is very high. And because I did some suspended hide training, she caught a visual and she saw a visual and she alerted up based on that visual. And that has bit me in the butt. So I've gotten some no's as a result. And so what happens with suspended hides a lot of times is that dogs are alerted for just looking up. And so the other thing that we've also noticed is that when dogs get confused, sometimes they just look up. And if dogs are confused and they look up and we either mark or we feed, we're reinforcing that I'm confused and I look up. And we can get ourselves into a bowl of trouble because as soon as the dog gets confused, they start to look up. And if we're doing a known hide, we're doing a suspended hide, at that point, we reinforce the dog. So for me, I don't train them. Do I encounter them at the summit level? Occasionally. I think once I was about 10 feet off of, where they wanted. The other one, I was just outside of the range, or I get, and it really comes down to what is the judge going to actually accept. But I also think reading my dog in that situation is probably more powerful than training suspended hides. Because if I can teach my dog elevated hides, but keep my dog from becoming overly visual, I'm 10 steps ahead of the curve. Anyway, that's why I don't train it. All right. I have reading glasses for this. Okay, let's see. Sorry, guys. Bloom and Onion. We recently felt the balance and that my dog has started to become extremely frustrated when working inaccessibles that he totally gives up because he can't get his nose on the source. What can I do? It's a great question. So in that case, it's possible that what I would be thinking about is think about your marker. If you have a good marker and you have a marker that the dog understands and the dog reacts to, when your dog is working in inaccessible hide, and you've gotten to the point where you would accept it, use your marker. That will help the dog to stop the behavior before they get frustrated. And then at that point, you can give them the reinforcement. This will help them to be able to make that decision a little bit earlier, will help them to be a little bit more decisive. So that's what I would do. Good question. Okay. All right. Hopefully, Chris, you can hear me. Ellen says, what would be the best way to allow Bud to hatch open? How close to the door? When should I reinforce her? What should I look for? So Ellen has a dog that I think Butter is very sensitive. So in that case, probably, so if you want to work her at Home Depot, if you have her in the crate and you open up the hatch and she sees people, if you want to feed her, you could absolutely do that. Really comes down to that's just really getting her acclimated to the area. And even if you took her out of the crate and you took her out into the parking lot, maybe the look at that game. Right. So if she looks at a person, give her food. That might not be a bad idea. Getting her to be a little bit more comfortable in the environment would definitely be a good idea. I think that's a good idea. All right, let's see here. Anne Marie says, hi, a good method to train food distraction. My dog doesn't make false indication on distraction, but he stays long on it. Okay, so as far as training your dog for food distractions, what I would probably do is start pretty easy. And so distractions themselves are a combination of discrimination and impulse control. So part of a distraction is the dog has to say, this is target odor or it's not target odor, right? And the other piece of it is either I don't want this or I do want this. And so for me, when I start with food distraction, I like the dog to say, first, work at discrimination level. It's not target odor versus it is target odor. And then once I get that really good, then I go to basically, I want this or I don't care about it. So I may start with a very nondescript, very low value distraction. I may even use like a handful of grass or a handful of dirt, something that the dog really is not going to care about very much at all. Any kind of like odors that might be even in the house. I might use like a little makeup pad and put like Lysol on it, something like that. So the dog has to make the discrimination between this is target odor versus this is not target odor, but they don't care about actually getting to it because there's no impulse control necessary. right? They don't care if they actually get to it. They don't care because it's not hot dog, it's not cheese, it's not something that they want to eat. And so we'll get that done. Once I work on the discrimination aspect, then I'll go to the uh, that because now I am working on distractions that the dog might actually want. So it's a little bit of a two-step process. So first, I work on discrimination, right? Second, I work on impulse control. And if you look at it from those two steps, what you're going to find is that it's a lot easier to go those two steps and work up to it. And I think that might help. Great. Let's see. We have here. Sorry, I'm 50. Okay. Let's see. Bloom Onion. Because he gives up, he has no aha moment. So I find myself unable to mark him in ways I used to be able to prior to his frustration cropping up. Oh. That has to do with your inaccessible hides. Yeah, you need to probably make the hide a little bit easier. It's possible that the sometimes when we put a hide in like a cabinet or something like that, it can actually close really too tightly. And we have to make sure that you don't have a situation where the seal is too tight. So if the seal is too tight, he may not get an odor. He may need to crack that the seal a little bit. So if you can start with like a cabinet hide, and even if you put something kind of like a right, kind of wedge it in there, you may find that if you wedge something in there and you just create a little bit more of a crack, that more odor will escape, and he'll start to realize that the hide is there, and you can mark him. He can be a little bit more specific. So that's what I would do with that. Good question. All right. This is Gretchen. How often do you replace a jar of Q-tips rather than fresh? I assume their odor changes over time, like essential oils. So essential oils have a shelf life of 2 years. I learned that from Jane at Canine Nosework Source, which is where I get all of my oils. I would say replace a jar of Q-tips. Oh gosh, I usually just add Q-tips to it. So, yeah, I do usually just refresh the Q-tips. I don't usually replace the whole jar, but you could. I guess it depends on if your odor is over 2 years old. Which, by the way, if you guys get a high-end trial and you get the tin with all the Q-tips in it, those make really good training hides. I use those. Anyway, any other questions, guys? These are really good. You guys are asking really, really good questions today. Thank you so much. All right, we've been on for about 15 minutes. We have about 15 minutes left. So whatever you guys want to talk about is great. Yep. This is just a little bit of a YouTube live I like to do. And, I think this technology seems to work a little bit better than Facebook Live. I've tried Facebook Live. I've had some issues with it. YouTube Live seems to be a little bit better. It's a little bit more clear. I can keep it on my YouTube channel. So, make sure you guys go back and take a look at the other episodes. It's all free. Take a look at it. All right. So since we're waiting for any other questions, just want to let you guys know I have a webinar coming up on Thursday. That's tomorrow at 8 p.m. Central, 9 p.m. Eastern. It's on calling finish with confidence. We're going to really look at the human side of it, a lot of the observation, a lot of strategy. We're going to get into those kind of conversations. So if you sign up at FenzieDogSportsAcademy.com, that's tomorrow night. So hope you will join me there. Okay, Anne Marie says, or her question is, how do you train endurance? More hides or difficult hides? So we have to kind of think about, how do we define endurance? And I would define that as nose time. So nose time, like how long will a dog work? And grit, will a dog stick with a hide? And how do I train that? It depends on the dog. So some dogs naturally have a little more grit. Some dogs, when they have that grit, their stamina is actually pretty good. So it comes down to, how much do they actually want to work towards the hide, right? How much do they actually want that hide, that they want to get to source? That's the issue. If I can build motivation, if I have a dog who is physically fit, if I put those two things together, I have stamina, right? I have a dog who has a motivation to get to source. I have a dog who's physically fit enough to work hard, to have the grit, to try hard. I have stamina. Those are the two pieces. I work on those two pieces. Absolutely. Okay, let's see. Can't see anything. All right. Gretchen says, what do you find are the biggest challenges in vehicle searches? I think the biggest challenge in vehicle searches are odor pools. When you have odor from a hide that gets trapped under another hide, under another vehicle, that's probably the biggest issue. And this becomes probably most pronounced when you have an unknown hide situation. I mean, I think back to, oh gosh, I had a search with Powder. It was her latest summit, and it was the one in Minnesota. And we had 8 vehicles. I think we had a total of 4 minutes. And it was like 4 vehicles, and then line of cones, and then another 4 vehicles. And it was a no-go back. So once you passed the cones, you could not go back and research those vehicles. So the issue was that the first 4 vehicles were blank, but the airflow was pushing all the odor from all those hot vehicles, because we had 3 hides or 4. We had 3 or 4 hides. I think we had 3 hides. Yeah, we had 3 hides. Those 3 hides were being pushed into the blank area. And I think the challenge is, can the dog dismiss the odor pools and dismiss the cold vehicles and move out of the cold vehicles and into the area where the odor actually is? So I think those odor pools are probably the biggest challenges for vehicles. Like, if you can, because honestly, like the issue with, like, even like a tilted wheel, like once you tilt a wheel, you create a pocket in the wheel well. And in that wheel well, that's where that odor is going to collect, right? That's going to be an odor pool. And it's very easy for the dog to kind of get caught up in that. And that odor pool is ripe for false alerts. So I think that's the biggest issue. I really do. Great question. Renee says, could you comment on what causes a trend in trials? Certain kinds of hides, distractions, etc. Is it just coincidence, or do the judges somehow communicate with each other? Well, I think in NACSW, I think they do communicate with each other. I think there's, I can't speak to it because I'm not a certifying official in NACSW. but I know they do talk to each other, and you do start to see some trends. Like you start to see um, certain hide placements, and those hide placements seem to be replicated kind of like within that kind of weekend or within the next few weekends, or if you really take a look at the high placements for those trials, we'll see some replication. But as far as AKC, I'm not so sure. I don't see a lot of discussion on the AKC Scentwork judges forum. I think sometimes you see, yeah, I don't know. That's a good question. I'm not sure. So, yeah. All right. Anything else, guys? Gosh, I'm getting old. All right. Yeah. So, um, anyway, hopefully that these YouTube lives are helpful for you guys. I try to do these kind of on a once a week basis. Um, they're free. So, anyway, so if we don't have any other questions, we'll probably wrap up. But we've been on close to 30 minutes. So, if you want to, I just want to kind of mention this, is that if you take a look at my YouTube channel, you can see the previous YouTube lives from that I've done before. You can check those out. They're all free. This is really just, if you have questions, I'm happy to talk about them. So, all right. So I think we're going to wrap this up. We're at about 27 minutes, unless anybody has any burning questions. Otherwise, we can talk about those next week. I try to do these once a week. Like I said, you can go back, you can watch previous episodes. They're all free. Again, I'm doing a webinar tomorrow. So if you want to talk about calling finish with confidence, that is really going to be the handler side. We're going to talk about, what are you observing? What is the strategy that you're working? Really having that, how do you feel confident going in with that finish call? I'd love to see you guys there. FenziDogSportsAcademy.com. You can still get part one. Part one was last week. Part one was based off of the dog side, and that was really based off of like focus and hide commitment. So if you want to really kind of dig deep into that, that is still available. So, all right, guys, have a great night, and I'll talk to you later. All right. Have a good one.